of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, who is our strength and our Redeemer. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I want to draw our attention to Matthew 25, 14 through 19. Matthew 25, 14 through 19. Hear these words as you read along. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who was leaving on a trip. He called his servants and handed his possessions over to them. To one he gave 5 valuable coins, and to another he gave 2, and to another he gave 1. He gave to each servant according to that servant's ability. Just, if you got a pen, just mark that right there. I want you to mark that. He gave to each servant according to that servant's ability. Then he left on his journey. After the man left, the servant who had 5 valuable coins took them and went to work doing business with them. He gained 5 more. In the same way, the one who had 2 valuable coins gained 2 more. But the servant who had received the 1 valuable coin dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Amen. That's really not how the story ends. And I'd encourage you to continue. As a matter of fact, Jesus explains this parable in the next few verses below. I would just encourage you to read that throughout your week. And we measure the quality and productivity of our lives by many systems of measurement. One of those measurements is love. We measure our lives by who we love and how well we love them. As we talked last week, we talked about love, and we talked about how important it is to love, and we talked about how much God loves us. This week, as we draw our attention to how we will measure our lives by what we give, we want to look at the theology and the implications of giving. I don't want you to be confined to thinking about money. So I just want you to broaden your understanding of giving outside of money. We give a lot, don't we? Yes. We give a lot. We give a lot. We give handshakes. We give hugs. We give kisses. We give glasses of water. We give the dogs food and water. We give the cats food and water. We give pets morning walks and evening walks. We give each other headaches sometimes. We give each other attention. We give a lot. We give listening ears to people who talk a lot. We give our kids safe places to stay. We give them discipline. We give political rhetoric. We give our aging parents support and rides to the doctor's office. We give permission. We give people attitudes. We give time. We give flowers. We give threats. We give promises. We give a lot. We give smiles. We give aid. We give up our seats for people. We give racist remarks. We give advice. We give certain things to certain people at certain times. We give a lot. And that's outside of money. We give a lot. We give so much that sometimes it can be draining. Right. In the scripture today, Jesus is telling another parable, another story with a spiritual, a moral, and a spiritual insight or underpinning. And this parable is called the parable of the talents. In this parable, we find the owner or a master giving his workers certain amounts of seeds to plant in the harvest and repeat the process. He at one point he gives, he returns, he gives, and he returns from a time away and asks what the people had done with the talents they received. Maybe the question that God is asking us is, what are we doing with the blessings that God has blessed us with? Maybe God is asking us, what are you doing with the blessings that I have given you? Maybe God, who's the owner in this story, or the master in this story, is asking, what are you doing with the every good and perfect gift that I give you? What are you doing with the money that you make from the job that I provided for you? How are you managing the relationships with the people that I have placed in your life? We're all responsible for the gifts that God has blessed us with. We measure our lives by having so many things. We measure our lives by accomplishments, by degrees, by class status, by political party. We measure our lives by promotions and jobs and children and property. But when God, who is the owner, comes back, our lives will be measured by the way we managed and handled these things or the blessings we receive. For many of us, we grew up, I don't know about you, but I grew up fantasizing about the things that I wanted as an adult. When I was a kid, I said I wanted to be a millionaire. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to drive the nicest car in the neighborhood. And I don't think there's anything wrong with these types of goals. But the question that we'll be asking of us, of ourselves today is not do we own the nicest car, or did we buy the biggest house, or did we travel the world? No, the question that will be asked is, what did you do with the car you had? What did you do? What were you doing when you traveled the world? What did you do with the $1 million or the $1,000 in your account? I don't think God is concerned with how much we have. God is the owner of the entire universe. There's no searching of God's understanding. God fainted not. You know, that scripture that talks about God's sovereignty and God's holiness and righteousness. God is not concerned with how much, because God owns everything. God is the creator of everything. God is not concerned of how much we have or how much this costs or how much we need. God is concerned with our character. God is the president of presidents. The King of kings. God is ruler above all rulers. I believe that God is more concerned with the quality of our character than God is concerned with the quantity of our wealth. That's right. That's right. This is why we teach that everyone should give to their church in gratitude and reciprocity of what God has given to you. Mm-hmm. Jesus teaches in this parable that we all have been given something. We all have something, no matter how poor we are or how rich we are. We all have been blessed with something. Which, by the way, usually means that no matter how poor we are or rich we are, it usually means that the poorest person in America is still richer than the poorest person in third world countries. God has given us something that we can use and work with. Look at your neighbor and say, work with what you have. Work with what you have. You may have not been born in the Queen of England's house. You may have not been born in Quincy Jones's immediate family, or even you may not be Warren Buffett's child, but you do have the ability to progress, to thrive, and to fulfill your greatest potential in life. You have everything you are connected to, and every person in your life to accomplish your wildest and greatest dreams. Yes. I love how verse 15 says that the owner gave to each servant according to the servant's ability. Mm-hmm. The owner gave to each servant's ability. I have my ability and you have your abilities. And we shouldn't compare each other's abilities. We shouldn't we should measure ourselves based on our abilities. God has blessed everyone with certain abilities to accomplish certain tasks, to fulfill a certain purpose. God gave you what you have, because God has a particular purpose
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
Don't waste your time comparing your ability to my ability. Spend your time unlocking the truth and understanding of your own ability so that you can accomplish your own divine assignment using the gifts that God has blessed you with. Have you heard the story of the crow? There's a story of a crow that lived in the woods. He was happy and never wanted for anything. But one day the crow saw a dove, and the dove was so bright and beautiful, and the crow thought to itself, I'm so dark and dull. And so the crow approached the dove and said, you are so beautiful, you must be the happiest bird alive. And the dove replied, I used to think that I was the happiest and prettiest bird alive, but then I saw the robin. Its chest was so red and vibrant. I feel so plain by comparison, the dove said. I think the robin must be the happiest bird alive. So the crow visited the robin and he said, you're so beautiful, you're so red and vibrant, you must be the happiest bird alive. And the robin said, I thought I was the happiest bird alive until I saw the peacock. Its colors were so impressive and their feathers were so long and rich. My red chest looks nothing. It's actually boring in comparison to the peacock. And then the robin said, I think the peacock must be the happiest bird alive. And so the crow flew to the local zoo to meet the peacock, and many people flocked to the peacock's cage and took pictures. And when the crowd left, the crow said to the peacock, you're so beautiful, and I heard that you are the most gorgeous and most happiest bird alive. And the peacock sighed and said, yeah, I thought I was the happiest bird and the most beautiful bird alive, but then they put me in a cage because of my beauty. Sometimes I look to the sky from my cage and I see the crows flying over. And I say, man, I want to be a crow. I think the crow must be the happiest bird alive. Like the crow, we compare ourselves to each other. The grass is always greener on the other side, and we lose sight of our own blessings. The scriptures say that each one had their own abilities. Perfect your ability. Cultivate your craft. Give from your own reservoir. Did you see the flooding of the dams this week? Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I thought it was incredibly sad that people were losing everything they owned, and some even their lives. I thought in a moment, though, that if we all reached our maximum potential and fullest capabilities in life, we too, like those dams, could overflow and pour into other people. We could bless other people, just like Mr. Emmanuel was singing about a few moments ago. God expects us to invest in our own gifts and blessings in each other's dreams. God wants us to do something with what we have and not get caught up in having and hoarding blessings. We like to hoard, we like to store, we like to bury, we like to keep. The Bible reminds us in 2 Corinthians 9:6 that the one who sows a small number of seed will also reap a small harvest. The reason we give is not so that we can hoard, but it is to plant seeds so that those seeds will plant and produce a harvest, not just for us to enjoy, for many people and generations to enjoy. I posted a question yesterday evening. Some of you probably saw it on Facebook. There's a big deal about the $1.6 billion Mega Million lottery. And I just threw the question out there on Facebook. I said, what would you do with, $1.6 billion? What would you do with that? And it was interesting. Folks I don't talk to, like I hadn't talked to in years, responded. And a few of the folks on their feet was like, you know, I'm going to do this, and then I'm balling, right? Like, I'm balling out of control, right? And I thought in reflection of the sermon, man, God is calling us to a deeper place of generosity. God is calling us to a generosity that not only looks at our condition, but looks at future generations and encourages us to invest in our future, in these young people you saw up here. The Bible reminds us in Luke 6:38 that when we give, it will be given back to us. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put in our lap. For the measure we give will be the measure we get back. Jesus spoke these words to the disciples to teach them the importance of investing in the good work of God. Jesus wanted them to move away from heartless, unintentional giving to giving with a purpose. So as we prepare to finish up here, I just want to ask you two questions. As I ask these questions, I really want you to ask them of yourselves. Am I investing in what God is doing at my church in a responsible way, or can I do better? And then ask yourself, will the measurement of my life come up short when it comes to my giving? So number one, am I investing in what God is doing at my church in a responsible way, or can I do better? And then ask yourself, will the measurement of my life come up short when it comes to my giving? Let us pray. God, you've blessed us with so much.